Representative Ward.
Thank you, Speaker. I rise with weak support, strong reservations.
Proceed.
Mr. Speaker, I often call this the marketplace of ideas. But this product here is a half a loaf. It's a half a loaf of bread, Mr. Speaker. It doesn't actually get where it should be going. Number one, it's a reimbursement. It doesn't even say that we owe $28 million, which it should. And the preamble is missing in terms of what the Nelson case that my colleague just referred to. That stipulates sufficient funding as shall, not a may, but a shall fund $28 million to the Department of Hawaiian Homelands. Mr. Speaker, this continues the short-circuiting, the half a loaf of bread that we've given to DHHL, and I don't need to cite the statistic, but I'm going to do it for the sake of getting my colleagues to realize how serious this situation is. For 96 years, they put 9,378 people onto the homelands. That's how many leases exist. 27,000 Hawaiians are waiting right now as we speak, Mr. Speaker, on the wait list. Why are we dithering with a bill like this when the courts have already said, after it's gone through for almost 9 years of adjudication, that we are going to equivocate? And I must say, if equivocation is the word, the Chair of Finance have said, look, we'll do this reimbursement, and then we'll look at the budget, and then we'll see how much, you didn't say this but implied, how much is left over, and then we will settle the Nelson case. Mr. Speaker, I know you went to one of the Nelson hearings, or one of the, actually, not an actual hearing, but it was when you attempted with the governor to have a reconsideration of the Castanetti decision. I know you went to be an amicus, you got the amicus, but I should remind members that the reconsideration or turning the Castanetti decision upside down was not granted. And if anything was granted, and I know people have kind of bragged that, oh, we're one and we're in a good position, we don't have to pay $28 million. The findings of fact in that case that still exists, that is alive and well, that we are under obligation to fulfill, is $28 million. What was vacated was the term in the first part of the finding that said the legislature is stipulated, or whatever the word was, to fund $28 million. Mr. Speaker, that's the equivalent of taking the letter 6 out and writing in the word half a dozen. She euphemized it, put it in different terms. So, Mr. Speaker, we are obliged to do this $28 million. Yesterday, I was accused in the Finance Committee of being confused about this bill and the state budget. Well, both of them have zeros. This one has a zero in it, the state budget has a zero in it, and we're supposed to say that the constitutional mandate to fund DHHL is satisfied? Mr. Speaker, we are not that naive. You can't have it both ways. Either it's in this bill, $28 million, or it's in the state executive budget. And right now it's in neither. For those reasons, Mr. Speaker, I don't see how in good conscience we can stand here and not vote this up, but also vote it up in the state budget so we know that we're not playing games with the Hawaiians again. For those reasons, Mr. Speaker, I hope everyone votes their conscience. And for 96 years, this body has not done its obligation. I think that's enough, Speaker. Thank you.
I think that's enough, too. Thank you very much.
Speaker,
second time.
Yes, second time. Thank you. I want to end on a note of gratitude and correction also. Thank you for keeping your word about saying that this would be a one-day delay, and you're actually hearing. I wasn't sure really we were going to have this bill come to the floor. So thank you for keeping your word and doing that. And for those who may, in a many way, accuse me of popping up as the Johnny-come-lately in support for the Hawaiians, I would say look at the journal, for those of you who haven't been here. Look, for example, of the speeches for Hawaiian homes. Look, for example, at the resolution, the Hawaii apology that Peter Apo in 1994, following the Clinton Hawaiian apology. We had an apology from the state of Hawaii to the people of Hawaiian ancestry. I would just ask those freshmen and other newbies who would not know that history of the Hawaiian community and how much lip service we've given it to this day. In fact, today's discussion sounds a little bit like what we had 10, 20 years ago. Speaker, you've been here 30 years. You know that. In your heart, you know we haven't done right for the Hawaiians.
Yes, would you please speak on the
okay, now, lastly,
before us.
To straighten the record about the record that he said I did not correctly cite. The motion for reconsideration was denied. Castanetti is not going to reopen that case and say that we don't have to fund DHHL. In findings of fact number 44 or 14, it says they will fund $28 million. That is a statement of fact. What she did was change that language in the frontal part of her ruling and make it, as I said earlier, instead of the number 6, like 28 million, she put in a half a dozen, saying the same thing, that we are obliged. And this body, until the end of the session, must come up with the $28 million, or we are going to be in contempt of court. And I would ask him to challenge me on that one also. The Constitution of 1978 in the convention said instead of may, it shall sufficiently fund. And after a lot of discourse, a lot of proof of how much it takes to fund the Hawaiian Homes Commission and the Hawaiian Homes lands, 28 million was sufficiently evidenced and proved to be the case. So if we're trying to wiggle out of it, Mr. Speaker, as the majority leader just said, I think we're doing the same old that we tried to do before. So let's be honest, let's be forthright, let's do justice with the Hawaiian people.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very much. You spoke twice already. I will not have any more discussion.
Can I
Thank you
have
very
my
much.
colleague yield to me a couple of minutes?
No, nobody can yield for that. You allowed the period of time you
Because
spoke
what he
twice.
said is inaccurate. It's only
Recess.
euphemism.
Representative, the House rule does not allow you to speak the third time. So can we get on with it? Any further discussion?
Mr.